Welcome to our Musician Spotlight today, generously sponsored by the Gibson Foundation. My name's Kaylee Shoemaker. I'm a Public Programs Coordinator here at the museum. I'd like to remind you about our membership. We have programs like this every weekend. We have songwriter sessions on Saturdays and other panel discussions and other cool programs we do throughout the year. Those are all included free with your museum membership, so I encourage you to check that out at our membership desk out front sometime today. A reminder to please silence your cell phones and turn off the flash, but you all are welcome to post to social media, tag the museum, tag Dave, all that good stuff. The Ford Theater emergency exits are the two in the back where you came in and one down here on the stage for emergencies only. This will last around 1 hour, so feel free to come and go today, but please make your move between songs. Be thinking of questions to ask Dave today. He is willing to take questions whenever the mood strikes you. So if you have a question, raise your hand and he'll be happy to answer those for you. He'll also be selling some merchandise in the back of the theater after the show. We have a lot of gear down here on the stage, so please don't come up to the stage after it's over. Please go to the back of the theater. It's on this side. We are so excited to have Dave Pomeroy joining us this afternoon for our Musician Spotlight. Dave has immeasurably contributed to the heartbeat of Nashville's music scene for nearly 40 years as a bassist, band leader, and producer. Struck initially with a desire to play the cello, he was introduced to his first bass by his 5th grade school orchestra teacher because they didn't have any cellos available. In the 6th grade, he auditioned for a countrywide youth orchestra and was awarded first chair. What he really wanted, though, was a smaller electric bass and mowed lawns for extra cash until he could afford his first bass, a Kingston Electric, for $42. He started playing with friends in different bands during high school and eventually ended up in Nashville, where he got his first gig playing with Sun Records recording artist Sleepy LaBeef. From 1980 to 1994, Pomeroy toured and recorded with country music legend Don Williams, and has since performed with live with artists such as John Fogerty, Willie Nelson, and Peter Frampton. As a studio musician, Pomeroy has played bass on more than 500 albums, including 6 Grammy-winning recordings with a diverse range of artists, including Keith Whitley, Emmylou Harris, The Chieftains, Alan Jackson, Earl Scruggs, Sting, Elton John, Alison Krauss, and Trisha Yearwood. A multiple Nashville Music Awards winner, his instrumental band Tone Patrol was voted Jazz Band of the Year in 1991, and Pomeroy was voted Studio Musician of the Year in 1992 and Bassist of the Year in 1997. He is a longtime columnist and an advisory board member for Bass Player magazine and has contributed as a writer to numerous books about the music business. As a member of the American Federation of Musicians since 1978, Dave has been active in Nashville's Local 257 as well as other musicians' organizations. He has served on various committees and in several leadership positions and is currently in his 3rd term on the International Executive Board of the American Federation of Musicians. He is known and appreciated all over town not only for his remarkable musicianship, but also for transforming Local 257 into a more responsive and proactive organization for all Nashville musicians. We are honored to have him here today to share his talent and life experiences with us. Please give a warm welcome to Dave Pomeroy.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for braving the rain to come on out. Appreciate everybody being here. It's a real honor to be asked to be part of this series by the Country Music Hall of Fame. Nashville is an amazing place. It's been great for me. All of my dreams have come true and then some. So I'm going to kind of take you on a little tour through my world. And I didn't realize all those little details of my childhood were going to come out in the bio, so that's kind of fun. I don't have to say that now. But it's true, I did want to play the cello, I think because it rhymed with jello, and I liked jello as a kid, and something else happened. But I was a military kid. My dad was in the Air Force, and I was born in Italy, and we moved around a lot as a young child. And when I was 5 years old, we moved to England. And it was 1961, and about a year and a half later, the telly exploded with the sound and the sights of these young guys running around, having a great time, and it looked like a lot of fun. I never actually knew it could be a job. I figured that out way later. But we moved back to Virginia. I was 8 years old. I played a little bit of piano and clarinet in the school orchestra and did okay. But when I was in 5th grade, they started an orchestra, as she said, and I thought I was going to play the cello, but instead when she said they already had cello players, I said, well, she said, you should play the bass. You have big hands. I said, well, okay, what's a bass? And she kind of turned, and there it was. And I've kind of been there ever since. So I'm going to start off with a song that's actually a new song from my most recent record, but it's kind of the 2.5-minute story of my life. So we'll start there. Hey, there we go. I got a date with a bass. I won't be coming over to your place. See, there's this melody I'm trying to chase. I got a date with a bass. Yes, I know that it's late, and I promised I'd be there by 8. I'm really sorry that I made you wait. I had a date with a bass, just me and my bass. I guess I'm a little strange, 'cause from an early age I've been in love with that sound so big and round and so low down. I got a date with a bass. I'm sorry I won't see your pretty face. Nothing but this could ever take your place. I got a date with a bass, just me and my bass. It might be hard to understand, but I'm a simple man, and I'm gonna lose my mind if I don't give my fingers enough time. They got a date with a bass. I hope you don't think that I'm a player just 'cause I'm playing. It ain't the same thing, babe, I'm really playing. I'm just saying, I got a date with a bass. I won't be coming over to your place. See, there's this melody I'm trying to chase. I got a date with a bass. A date with a bass. Just me and my bass. Just me and my bass. Smart aleck questions are encouraged, as all are. And the longer you hang around, you'll see that I never, whoa, hey, how many times have I done that in my life? I talk all the time, so feel free to interrupt with a question at any point. It'd probably be good to wait till the end of the song, but I'm pretty good either way. So she said, when I was about 12 years old, I figured out that this was this. And it really all started with a riff. And my sister's boyfriend was a guy named Bill Gormley from California, and he came to visit our family just one time. And he showed me a riff, and it changed my life. And the riff was... I mean, that blew my mind. It's like, wow, a riff. They didn't teach me that in orchestra. And then I realized that, Day Tripper was a riff. And it's like, oh, wow. And then I figured out that you can take a riff and just move it up a string, and you've got a new riff. And so it was really exciting. But I think of all those songs that I dug as a kid, and Jack Bruce from Cream was really the guy for me. He was the first person where I went, that's what I want to do. With the Beatles, it was tougher because they were like an oil painting. It was all one big thing. And with Cream, I could actually separate who was doing what. And Jack was a great hero of mine, great singer, writer. But my favorite thing was a song they did called Spoonful. And you talk about riffs, this is like the simplest riff ever. They did that for 16 minutes and 44 seconds. And I played along with that record over and over and over again. Drove my parents absolutely insane. But it was really, Cream was really the band that got me going. I had a bunch of other heroes. Chris Squire from Yes, John Entwistle from The Who. So many great bass players. I eventually got into some jazz. Stanley Clarke. You know, that was another one of those. School days, and it was right around that time that I'd been playing in bands all the way through high school, and in college, in my second year of college, I joined a folk trio. Well, they were a duo till I joined, and then they were a trio, and it's funny how that worked. And so we actually worked. We actually made money, and I thought, you know, here I am wasting my parents' money going to school. This isn't going to work anymore. And so my dad at the time was stationed at NATO headquarters in Belgium. And so I thought to myself with 20-year-old logic, well, I'll just go to London and be a rock star. That'll be great. So that was the plan. And a couple months after I showed up in Belgium with all my gear and stuff, and my parents looked at me I said, oh yeah, by the way, I withdrew from school. Did I mention that? And then the grades arrived and pretty much sealed the deal. And so I went to London, and I got there on a Wednesday, and I picked up a magazine called The Melody Maker, and I answered an ad, and I got an audition the next night. I got the gig. Friday night, I watched the bass player play his last gig. Saturday night, I did my first gig, and Monday morning, I went to the immigration office and applied for a work permit. And I got one, and I stayed there for a year, and I played in about 5 different bands, including a group with a guy named Greg Carmichael, who later became famous as part of the group Acoustic Alchemy. In fact, when they came to town, I helped them hook them up with the MCA Master Series label at that time. But London was a great experience, and after doing that, it's like, well, I'm not going back to Virginia. I got to go to New York, LA, or Nashville. I didn't know anybody in New York. I didn't know anybody in LA. I knew one person here. Mary Riles was her name at the time, Mary Bomar. And she was the girl who I had been in a trio with in college, and she'd moved here and was signed to Roger Cook and Ralph Murphy's publishing company, and invited me to come check Nashville out. So I did, and I moved here on October 5th, 1977, and this is my home. I love this place. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. So a lot of funny things happened. I'll tell you about a few of them. Can't tell you about some of them. But my first gig in Nashville was with a guy named Sleepy LaBeef, one of the most hilarious names of all time, but also an incredible artist. They call him the Human Jukebox. He knows 10,000 songs at least, and he plays them one after another, no charts, no rehearsals, follow or die. And I'd been here about a month, and I hopped on Sleepy's motorhome and went up, and we worked around the Boston area for about a year, never did get back to Nashville. Finally left, but I learned a lot from Sleepy. He was my introduction to the country vocabulary. I knew when Willie Nelson sang Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, you had to go. And that was quite a bit calmer than I'd ever been, but he would also hit Bo Diddley and all that stuff. So it would, you know, he really, it was a great encyclopedia of what they now call Americana music, and I really feel that Sleepy, who's now 82 years old, still got it, still performs. He is the living embodiment of what they now call Americana music to me. So I came back to town, got a couple of day jobs, selling encyclopedias, selling fire alarms, exciting stuff. And I was jamming with some guys down in a basement over on Woodmont Boulevard, and the drummer was a guy named Freddie Fletcher, and he said, hey man, you sound good. You want to play with Guy Clark? I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like the bass. Who's Guy Clark? And I very quickly found out, because the next day I was sitting in that same basement with Guy playing one song after another for me, and I'm like trying to write charts, and I'm listening to the words, and I'm just going, wow, I've never heard anything like that in my life. Guy Clark was the best speed bump I ever could have hit in my life, because he slowed me down. This song only has 3 chords, but his lyrics are so powerful, and that it was like this, it was literally like kind of hitting a brick wall and going, yeah, maybe I need to think about some of these notes that I'm playing and not just throw them out quite so casually. And so it was a really great experience, and Guy became a friend and a mentor. He taught me a lot of stuff over the years, and I'm going to do one of his songs for you now. This is one that we recorded a few years later on his album, the title track of his album called Old Friends. And we'll get this crazy guy over here, and whoop, hey. So this bass was made for me in 1982 by a guy named Harry Fleischman. And when I took this out on the road with Don Williams, who actually paid for half of it because I couldn't afford it, but I begged him and he paid for half of it, and I did pay him back eventually. But this bass was something that I got because I was inspired by a German bass player named Eberhard Weber, who played something like this. And when I was living in London, I saw him fronting a band, and it was phenomenal. I'd never heard a sound like that. At the time, Jaco Pastorius was the most famous new bass player around, and everybody was trying to imitate Jaco. But when I heard Eberhard Weber, I heard a different sound, more like almost a trombone, a very open sound. And so I was very... So with Guy, I learned what two chords meant and how simple you could be with that, and it was a great education. This particular song has two chords. They're both good ones. And so when I played on this record with Guy, Emmylou Harris sang harmony, which was wonderful, and I knew these cables were going to do that. They always do. And about not too long after that, Emmylou called me to play on one of her records, and we've been friends ever since. She's an amazing lady, and her and Guy both had a big influence on me. So this is a song of Guy's, and I'm going to hip you to my little, I got some machines here, my friends. This one makes crazy sounds, and this one is essentially, well, what we call a looper. It's essentially a foot-operated tape recorder with a digital memory, and I can do various things. This is an example of that, but more importantly, it's one of my favorite songs ever. I recorded this on my second solo record, and I have made 3 records with all basses playing the roles of the entire band, and it's been quite interesting, and we'll talk about that a little more later. But this is a song that I really love, and I was really tickled to get to play on Guy's version of it, and I was happy to do it myself. So don't be alarmed when you hear more than one of me, as scary as that may be. Believe me. All right. It's like when you're making conversation and you're trying not to scream, trying not to tell them that you don't care what they mean, and you're really feeling fragile, but you know you can't get home, and you really feel abandoned, but you want to be alone. Old friends shine like diamonds. Old friends you can always call. Old friends, Lord, you can't buy 'em. You know it's old friends after all. Empty and the lights begin to fade, and there's nothing to protect you except the window shade. It's hard to put your finger on the thing that scares you most, 'cause you don't know the difference between an angel and a ghost. Old friends shine like diamonds. Old friends you can always call. Old friends, Lord, you can't buy 'em. Thank you. So I've been with Guy about 6 or 8 months, and he was sharing a band with Billy Joe Shaver. And I'd made friends with the guys in Don Williams' band. We had mutual friends, Biff Watson and Pat McInerney and Danny Flowers and a guy named Dave Williamson playing bass. And we were just kind of hanging out, and I was just having fun getting to know him. And one day Dave Williamson called me up and said, "Hey man, I'm not really a bass player. I'm not really having much, I want to be a songwriter. I don't really want to do this gig anymore. Would you be interested in the Don Williams gig?" And I'm riding around Minnesota in a van with Billy Joe Shaver, and I'm like, yeah, I would be interested. Thank you. And so I came back to town. It was kind of like going to London. I got here on a Tuesday, picked up a cassette with about 20 songs on it. Wednesday, I met Don and his co-producer, Garth Fundus, in the studio and rehearsed with the band Wednesday night, rehearsed with Don on Thursday night, and Friday played without any charts, 20-some songs with harmony vocals, and in front of the biggest crowd I'd ever played for in my life, and also the quietest crowd I'd ever played for in my life. I had never heard people listen the way they listened to Don, and he was a man of few words, and after the first night he said, "Feels pretty solid." And that was pretty much all he said to me the whole weekend, and so I figured I didn't get the gig. And so when we were leaving at the end of the weekend at 5 in the morning or something, and I said, "Well, Mr. Williams, it was really great to see you, and play with you, and I don't know what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah." And he says, "See you next weekend." So I guess I had the gig, and it was a life-changing experience. Don was a mentor, a friend, a father figure. He empowered me in ways that I just couldn't even believe. I never thought about being a songwriter, and he sat down and wrote songs with me. And I never thought about being a studio musician, and he had us in the studio trying different things. He got us a record deal with our band, went to his label and got us a deal, which just, people don't do that kind of stuff. And we did, and we put out an album that did absolutely nothing, but I got a song on the album. Biff and I wrote an instrumental, and I think Pat McInerney's here. We got Pat McInerney right over there. Is Biff you here somewhere, Biffer? We get Biff, we didn't get Biff. And Danny Flowers is off somewhere being Danny Flowers, which is always fun. So I was thinking about what I could do for this little section of the show, and I thought, Don and I wrote a few songs together, and I actually recorded one of his tunes on my last album, and as you can see by this thing, I'm kind of into weird basses. We can talk about that too in a minute. But I thought that I would do a little instrumental tribute to Don with one of the songs of his that just always, every time we played it, I felt the magic. And so I'm going to do a little instrumental version of this for Don. But I did record the song that he and I wrote together called "Which Way is Santa Fe" on my latest record. And if you ever wondered what a band of 9 ukulele basses sound like, you can buy that record and find out for yourself. But I thought that I would do a little instrumental version of a song that I just truly love called "Till the Rivers All Run Dry." And so this is for Don. Thank you, but Don Williams was an amazing part of my life, and I'm so grateful for him for opening up just so many doors. And he did it in such a way that you didn't even realize he was doing it at the time. He gave me probably the single best piece of musical advice I ever got in my whole life. I'd been with him maybe 6 or 8 months or so, and I was still struggling, trying to calm down just a little bit more. And he said to me, "David, you don't have to play what's on the record. Just don't throw me off." And that was such a, and it fits every kind of music there is. When someone is saying something, don't interrupt them. So I'm really, really grateful for Don for giving me the chance to do that. And writing songs was part of that too. So I'd written a few things here and there, and but Guy Clark called me one day, and he said, "Hey man, I got a song you need to hear." And Guy Clark is not the kind of person that calls you up and pitches you a song. So I thought, that's interesting. So I went over to a guy's office, and he played me a song with a very straight face. And it was something he had heard down at Kerrville Folk Festival, a song written by a lady named Emily Cates. And he knew I would like the song for reasons that will very soon become obvious. And so I took the song and I recorded a version with about 20 bass parts on it. And I added some words and I rearranged some things. And I sent it to the writer, Emily, and she was kind enough to make me a co-writer and co-publisher of the song. And so I recorded it, and at the time, a guy named Richard Johnston at Bass Player Magazine had been doing some writing about some of the records I'd played on, and he was thinking about doing a feature story. And then I sent him this song, and that kind of sealed the deal, and the editor of Bass Player Magazine really liked it, a guy named Jim Roberts. And the next summer at the NAMM show, we did the all-bass orchestra with 20-some bass players all together on stage. And so this song really opened up a lot of bizarre possibilities, and you're going to experience a few of them now, I'm afraid, whether you want to or not. Well, you could get up and go, but I hope you won't. Anyway, so let me make sure I've got my buttons together here. Boy, this thing is louder than I thought it was. All right, and so this song was eventually recorded by Chet Atkins, and that was pretty amazing. He came in to see me one night and heard that song and said, "Send that over." And he recorded it as The Day Fingerpickers Took Over the World, but this is the original version. The change was subtle and the mood was low-key. The sky was overcast, you couldn't hardly see, but the creatures all slid down to a slower frequency. The day the bass players took over the world. We came pouring out of symphonies, orchestras and bands, and every other kind of combo ever known to man. And although it was spontaneous, you'd think it was planned when the bass players took over the world. One day the bass players decided to uprise, tired of being sidemen to all those other guys. So we kidnapped the horn section, spiked the drummer's drinks, and tied up the guitar players with them big old flat wound strings. Decided to uprise, tired of being stepped on by all this techno jive, so we erased the memory of all those drum machines and locked away the keyboards and the sampling things. So this is the part where I usually go into a big rant about bass players never getting any respect and da-da-da-da-da, but y'all are here and you haven't left, so I'm not going to give you that rap. But I will tell you that the bass player makes drummers sound like music. He makes sense of what that crazy guitar player's doing. He can bail out the keyboard player when he doesn't know what he's doing with his left hand. There's a lot of stuff they can do, but most importantly, we can make you dance. And so the world was finally set free. The animals all hung out and interacted fretlessly. And the air began to vibrate with such a deep tonality. The day the bass players took over the world. The day the bass players took over the world. The day the bass players took over the world. Look out 2020. The day the bass players took over the world. All right. Thank you. So that opened up a world of possibilities, including these funny boxes here, and I started writing instrumental tunes. I started finding songs that I could do with the bass, because I just never got the memo that bass players weren't allowed to just play and sing like guitar players do all the damn time. So I just kept doing it and kept building up catalogs of stuff. And the Beatles always seem to come back around, so I'm going to do a song here by the Beatles, but I do want to say that there's somebody here who's really had a big effect on my life. When I got off the road with Don and I started working in the studio and doing sessions, one of the guys who really took a chance on me, and we did a lot of great work together with Don, with Keith Whitley, and with Trish Earwood. Garth Fundus is here. Garth, wave your hand at that buddy there. He's a great, great producer, and Garth really, he really did me a solid a number of times, and this bass was kind of part of a lot of those records. When Keith Whitley made his last final two records with Garth and with the team of players that we put together, I used this bass on almost everything, and it just seemed like it fit his voice. Even though when I got this bass, I was thinking about a German jazz dude, it actually fit country music, and that was a very interesting revelation, and it kind of became my hook. And bass players don't get to have hooks very often, so I'm really glad that this really beat up thing has become my alter ego. And we call it the Beast because we've done so many things to it. We called it Frankenstein for a while, but it was built by a guy named Harry Fleischman. And Harry really did me a solid when he made me this bass. And we've changed it around, and got to give some kudos to my buddy Dave Cinco, who I met doing modifying stuff on this, but we eventually became good friends, and he's engineered a lot of the stuff that I've worked on. So I'm gonna play a Beatles song for you here, and you might remember, about 66 or so, the Beatles got off the road, they just couldn't handle it anymore. They wanted to go in the studio and make records that they'd never have to think about playing on stage. So needless to say, I thought that would be a perfect song to try to do as the impossible dream. So if you remember an album called Revolver, the very last track is a very trippy kind of thing. So I don't think the room's gonna start spinning and fly into outer space or anything, but if it does, we'll all be together. As I said, this tune is, this is the title track of my second solo record. And again, it just, the Beatles just won't go away, even now, and that's a beautiful thing. And this is called Tomorrow Never Knows. Buckle your seatbelts. These boxes cooperate most of the time, not always. So it's always good to make sure. And so just to say that if everything goes wrong and I have to start again, my intentions were very good. And we go from there. So almost there. Okay. Float downstream. It is not dying. It is not dying. Okay. Everybody all right? No flashbacks or anything? All right, very good. All right, well, we got a little more of a journey for you here. You know, what I learned from the Beatles, one of the things was that, you know, music is a positive force in the universe. One of my favorite phrases is that music makes the world get smaller. And it really does. You know, you meet people, you have all these encounters with all these things. There's so many you can't even count them. And it's all because of music. And it's easy to forget that in the industry and all that kind of stuff. But music is really meant to change the world. And the Beatles believe that, and I do too. Next song I'm going to do for you here is another new one. I've been in bands for years, over the years, bands like Tone Patrol and Blue Monday, Three Ring Circle, a lot of fun stuff. And one of the bands I'm in at the moment is a band called the Kimosabis with my buddy Rick Lano right there in the center. Wave your hand, Rick. Yeah. He hates it when I do that. This is a song that he and I and Ricky Ray Rector wrote together. And it's a song about that very thing, about positive energy and just trying to make the world. Woo, hey, we're still in psychedelic mode. Hang on. Are we ever not? Whoa, hey, we're still there too. Okay. Stop that. These machines have a mind of their own, believe me. But we're back. And so this is a song that we sat down. We've had this band now for a few years, and this is the first time that we sat down to write something together. And we're really happy with how it turned out, and they were kind enough to let me record it on my album, Angel in the Ashes, which is up there in the top. We have a bunch of Earwave record stuff, and you're welcome to hang around and check it out. If anybody needs to leave, you can put cash on the table. The prices are there. I trust you. I'm not worried about it. Music is for sharing, but you should pay for it. Said the President of the Union. All right. So this song is called There's a Healing Coming. And Lord knows there ought to be. There's a healing coming through the air. We are all surrounded by angels everywhere. Every tear's a river to wash away your pain. So put it all behind you and go stand out in the rain. There's a healing coming through the air, yeah. We are all surrounded by angels everywhere. Don't hold back your feelings, bring them to the light. Why not count your blessings, spread your wings and fly. There's a healing coming. Open up your mind, there's a healing coming. It's there for you to find, there's a healing coming. This can be your time, all you need to do is just believe in you. angels everywhere. This world is so confusing, and life can be so strange. But if you're ready to receive it, yeah, you can make that change. There's a healing coming. Open up your mind, there's a healing coming. There for you to find, there's a healing coming. This can be your time, all you need to do is just believe. There's a healing coming. Open up your mind, there's a healing coming. It's there for you to find, there's a healing coming. This can be your time, all you need to do is just believe. All you know it's true, you must believe in you. All right. Well, it's been a real honor to be part of this, and I really appreciate it. You know, Nashville is an amazing place. I don't know how many of y'all are from here, how many of you are coming from out of town, but we're way more than the it city. Nashville is Music City, and it's not all these other places it could have been. Why? Because in Nashville, musicians and creators are respected for what they do. And this is where people came for decades to be treated as a professional and be paid. And the big bang was when Elvis' contract got sold here and they hired Chet Atkins to run RCA Records, and Chet said, we're going to do this right and we're going to pay our people. They hired Owen Bradley to run Decca Records. He said the same thing. And the two of them and a guy named George Cooper, who was president of the union for 38 years, were the guys that made sure that everybody got paid and got treated fairly. And that's why Nashville is what it is. And I'm so grateful for that. And that's why I got involved in the musicians union. About 10, 12 years ago, it just suddenly became apparent that it was time for a change. And a lot of us got involved. There's a bunch of people. And one thing led to another. And 10 years ago, I got elected president of the Nashville Musicians Union. And something that I love doing. I take it very seriously. 2 years after that, the revolution that started here in Nashville spread to the entire AFM, and we voted out 4 out of 5 board members and the president and the vice president, and I'm now an international executive officer of the entire AFM, which I appreciate that, but you know, I love getting musicians paid. It's my second favorite thing after playing the bass. So I'm not watching the clock, but I'm thinking we're getting pretty close, probably. And so I'm going to do one more song, and you know, life is an improvisation. I talk to kids a lot, you know, young students and stuff, and I always tell them, you know, you have this inner voice that speaks to you, your intuition, your gut, your heart, whatever you want to think of it as. And what I tell these kids, and I really believe this is true, if you stop listening to that inner voice, it will stop talking, and then you're on your own. Why would you do that? So listen to those things. Some of the craziest ideas I've ever had have turned into being some of the most successful things that I've been involved in. And so many things are randomly, you just have to be aware of what's going on around you. And you know, we're in a world now where everybody's looking at their phone all the time, but there's magic in the air everywhere, and you can find it if you just open yourself up to it. And that's what that last song is kind of about. And this is an instrumental version of that same thought. And this is with my crazy little boxes that I like to fool around with. Occasionally I'll just get in there and I'll be supposed to be practicing something else, and suddenly something else just kind of starts happening, and I'm sort of in control of it, but not really. And so this is, I was finishing up my most recent record, and we put out 12 albums and 2 DVDs on Earwave, one of which I should mention, the Sleepy LaBeef DVD. If you ever wondered about this Sleepy LaBeef guy, we do have a thing, and Rick Lano's on drums on that. And but this song is called Pendulum, with the idea being that this is life, but the good stuff's right here. So when you get to the middle of that pendulum swing, appreciate it. And once again, I will give the slight disclaimer that this could all go horribly wrong at any moment. And if it does, I'll just hit the undo button as many times as I need to get back. So Thank God for the undo button. Who thought of that? Thank you. All right, so, and this is kind of a classic example of something that, a sound that inspired the rest of the tune. And you'll hear that crazy sound right up front here. Everybody's together. Yep. And here we go. See you on the other side. that. That's called Pendulum. Thank you guys so much. My honor and pleasure to be here. Thanks to the Country Music Hall of Fame and all of y'all for coming. Happy to hang around and speak for a little while after. And feel free to grab some merch on the way out if you feel so moved. Thank you.